The sun rose slowly, and I found a note on my kitchen counter at 6 o'clock in the morning. Upgrading to someone younger and better in bed. My name's Adam. I'm 51. Been married to Stephanie for 8 years. She was gone. The bed hadn't been slept in. The house felt different, emptier somehow, like she'd taken more than just her clothes. I stood there, holding the paper, reading it twice. Then I folded it once and set it down next to my coffee mug. The words stung, sure, but underneath that was something else. Relief, maybe, or just the absence of pretending everything was fine when it hadn't been fine for months. Stephanie had always been impulsive with money. Credit cards maxed, shopping sprees she couldn't explain, bills that appeared out of nowhere. I'd covered for her more times than I could count, made excuses to her family, smoothed things over when she'd bounce checks or forget to pay the mortgage. Her father, Gerald, used to joke that she got her mother's looks and her grandfather's spending habits. Nobody was laughing anymore. The past 6 months had been worse. She'd grown distant, secretive about her phone, coming home late from work without explanation. When I'd ask where she'd been, she'd snap at me like I was interrogating her instead of just wondering why dinner was getting cold. We'd stopped talking about anything that mattered. Stopped talking much at all. I walked to the window and looked out at the driveway. Her car was gone, of course. So was the jewelry box from our bedroom dresser and the emergency cash I kept in the desk drawer. She'd been thorough. I had to give her that. My phone buzzed. A text message from her father. Everything okay with you too? Stephanie called last night. Sounded upset. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "We'll figure it out." But standing there in my empty kitchen, I had the strangest feeling that things were about to get much worse before they got better. Stephanie had always been reckless when she was angry. And if she thought she could hurt me by spending money, she was about to find out just how much damage she could do. I poured myself another cup of coffee and sat down at the table. The note was still there, accusing me with every word, but something about it felt off. Not just cruel, calculated, like she'd been planning this moment for longer than I'd realized. The house was too quiet. I could hear the refrigerator humming, the clock ticking on the wall, my own breathing. Everything normal, except nothing, would ever be normal again. Gerald Brixton had built Zentron Global from nothing. Started with a single manufacturing plant in Birmingham, Alabama, making industrial equipment and turned it into a multi-million-dollar operation with contracts across the Southeast. He was the kind of man who remembered every employee's name, worked weekends alongside his crew, and never asked anyone to do something he wouldn't do himself. When I married his daughter, he pulled me aside at the reception. "Adam," he said, "I like that you work with your hands. Stephanie needs someone steady." I'd been managing construction crews for 15 years by then. Knew how to handle budgets and schedules, and men who didn't like taking orders. Gerald and I understood each other. We both believed in earning what you had. Stephanie was different, beautiful, charming, but she'd grown up with money and never learned the weight of it. Her mother had died when she was 12, and Gerald had tried to make up for that loss by giving her everything she wanted. College, cars, credit cards with no limits. It was love, but it was also a mistake. 3 years ago, Gerald had asked me to meet him at his office. "I need a favor," he said, closing the door. "I want to set up a joint account with you for business purchases, equipment, investments, that sort of thing." I'd been confused. "Why not use your regular business accounts?" He'd looked uncomfortable. "Because Stephanie has access to those as my daughter. She's listed as a beneficiary on everything." And lately, he trailed off, then started again. "She's been asking a lot of questions about my finances, wanting to know about retirement plans, inheritance, liquid assets. Makes me nervous. You don't trust her." "I don't trust her judgment when it comes to money. Never have. But you understand business, Adam. You know how to be responsible with large sums. We'd kept the arrangement quiet. The account was substantial, nearly $200,000 that Gerald used for major equipment purchases and expansion planning. Only he and I had access. Even the bank paperwork listed it as a business partnership account between Gerald Brixton and Adam Wesley. "Don't mention this to Stephanie," he'd said that day. "She'd feel hurt thinking I don't trust her. But money changes people, Adam, and I've worked hard to watch it all disappear because someone can't control themselves." I'd agreed, understanding his position. But over the months, I'd started noticing things. The way Stephanie would go through my wallet when she thought I was sleeping. How she'd ask casual questions about Gerald's business, about my work, about accounts and investments. Little probes disguised as conversation. Now, standing in my empty kitchen, those conversations felt different, less innocent, more like reconnaissance. My phone started buzzing at 9 that morning. First call was from Truspire Bank. An automated fraud alert. Someone had attempted to withdraw $5,000 from an account ending in 7,392. I hung up, confused. That wasn't one of my account numbers. Second call came 10 minutes later. Different bank. An authorized transaction on account ending in 8,847. Again, not mine. Third call was from a credit card company. Someone had maxed out a card I'd never applied for, spending $12,000 in 2 hours at luxury stores in downtown Birmingham. When I told them I hadn't made those purchases, the representative asked for my social security number to verify my identity. "Sir," she said after a pause, "this card was opened 3 months ago with your information, but the authorized user is listed as Stephanie Wesley. Did you add her to the account?" "No," I said. "I've never seen that card in my life." "I see. Well, someone's been very busy this morning. Nordstrom, Coach, Apple Store, jewelry store on Highland Avenue. All transactions within the past 4 hours." I hung up and sat down hard in my kitchen chair. Stephanie hadn't just left me. She was systematically destroying what she thought were my finances. Every account she knew about, every credit line she could access, every dollar she could get her hands on. My phone rang again. This time it was Gerald. "Adam," he said, and his voice was different, strained. "I need you to explain something to me. I just got off the phone with my bank. They're telling me someone's been making unauthorized withdrawals from our joint account. Large ones." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "What kind of withdrawals?" $50,000 this morning. Another $30,000 20 minutes ago. The bank flagged it because the transactions were made at different branches and they're all cash withdrawals. His voice got quieter. "Adam, the bank says the withdrawals were made by someone with access to the account information. Someone who knew the account numbers." I closed my eyes. Stephanie had been going through my papers, my wallet, my computer. She'd found the account information and thought she was stealing from me. Instead, she was stealing from her own father. "Gerald," I said slowly, "Stephanie left me this morning. She's trying to hurt me financially, but she doesn't know about our arrangement. She thinks that account is mine." Silence on the other end. "Then you're telling me my daughter is stealing from her own father to get back at her husband?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you." Another long pause. "How much does she have access to?" "All of it," I said. "She had access to my desk, my computer, my files. If she copied the account information—" "Jesus," Gerald whispered. "She could drain everything." I looked at the note on my counter. Those cruel words about upgrading to someone better. Stephanie thought she was destroying my life. Instead, she was about to destroy her own. By noon, Gerald and I were sitting in the bank manager's office, watching security footage on a computer screen. There was Stephanie, clear as day, sliding a driver's license across the counter to a teller. She'd withdrawn $80,000 in 3 separate transactions at 3 different branches. "How is this possible?" Gerald asked the manager, a thin man named Roberts, who kept adjusting his glasses. This is a business account. She shouldn't have access. Sir, she had all the account information, numbers, routing codes, even the security questions. When someone has that level of detail, we assume they're an authorized user. Roberts looked uncomfortable. Plus, she's your daughter. The teller recognized the last name. Gerald's face was stone. She's not authorized on this account. Only Mr. Wesley and myself. We understand that now. Sir, we've frozen the account immediately, but I'm afraid there's only about $40,000 left of the original balance. $160,000 gone in one morning. Gerald turned to me. Where else could she have gotten account information? I thought about the past few months. She's been in my office at home. Goes through my desk when she thinks I'm not looking. The account statements come to the house. Have you confronted her about the theft? I can't find her. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. She's not at work. I called, and they said she took personal time off. Roberts cleared his throat. Gentlemen, I should mention that we're required to report this to the authorities. This amount constitutes grand theft, and since it's from a business account, there may be additional charges. Gerald was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Do what you have to do. We walked out of the bank into the afternoon heat. Gerald stopped next to his truck and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Hurt, but also something harder. Adam, I need you to understand something. That money wasn't just sitting there. I was planning to use it for equipment purchases next month. New machinery that would have created 12 jobs. Now I have to figure out how to cover payroll while we sort this mess out. The weight of that hit me. This wasn't just about Gerald losing money. It was about the people who worked for him, the families depending on those paychecks. I'm sorry, I said. If I'd known she was going through my things. This isn't your fault. He pulled out his phone. But I need to make some calls. See if I can move some assets around, cover the shortfall. He paused. And I need to figure out how to tell the rest of the family that Stephanie's stolen from the business. That afternoon, I drove around Birmingham looking for her car, checked her sister's house, her best friend's apartment, the gym where she used to work out. Nothing. But at 4 o'clock, my phone rang with another fraud alert. She just tried to use a credit card at a hotel in Huntsville, 2 hours north. I called. Gerald, she's in Huntsville. Probably thinks she's far enough away to avoid questions. Good, he said. Because I just got off the phone with my lawyer. He says if we can prove she's still actively spending the money, it strengthens the theft case. Shows intent to defraud. What do you want me to do? Nothing. Let her keep spending. Every transaction she makes digs the hole deeper. His voice was bitter. I raised her to be better than this. Adam, I don't know where I went wrong. You didn't go wrong. You trusted your daughter. Yeah, he said. I did. And now I have to live with the consequences. That evening, Gerald called an emergency family meeting at his house. His sister Janet, his brother-in-law, Marcus, and Stephanie's younger brother Tyler all showed up, confused and worried. Gerald had told them it was about Stephanie, but nothing more. I sat in the living room where I'd spent countless Sunday dinners, listening to Gerald explain everything, the joint account, the theft, the police report he'd filed that afternoon. The family listened in stunned silence. Wait, Tyler said when Gerald finished. You're saying Stephanie stole money from the business? Our business. $160,000. Gerald said quietly. Money that was earmarked for expansion, for new equipment. Money that would have secured jobs for people who've been with us for years. Janet spoke up. But why would she do that? She doesn't need money. You've always taken care of her. Gerald looked at me. Because she thought she was stealing from Adam. She was trying to hurt her husband financially and ended up robbing her own family. The room went dead quiet. Marcus leaned forward. Are you telling us she didn't know the money was yours? That's exactly what I'm telling you. She thought it was Adam's personal account. She was trying to destroy his life and ended up destroying her own future with this family. Tyler stood up and started pacing. This is insane. Stephanie's always been irresponsible with money, but theft from her own father. There's more, Gerald said. He pulled out a folder from his desk. I had my accountant go through everything this afternoon. This wasn't the first time. Small amounts have been missing from various accounts over the past year. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. I thought it was bookkeeping errors. He spread out bank statements. On the coffee table, look at these dates. March 15th, July 22nd, October 3rd. Every time, it coincides with periods when Stephanie was asking me about money, about the business, about my retirement plans. Janet picked up one of the statements. You think she's been stealing from you for a year? I think she's been testing the waters, seeing what she could get away with. Today was just the first time she got greedy enough to take an amount that triggered fraud alerts. I felt sick. Gerald, I had no idea she was. This isn't about you, Adam. This is about my daughter making choices, bad choices that hurt people who trusted her. He gathered up the papers. I've been supporting her lifestyle for years. Her car payment, her credit cards, even some of the expenses for the house you to live in. All of that stops now. Marcus asked the question everyone was thinking. What happens next? The police will arrest her when they find her. The district attorney will decide whether to prosecute, and I'll have to figure out how to rebuild the trust she's destroyed. Gerald's voice was steady, but I could see the pain in his eyes. She's my daughter, and I love her, but she's also a thief who stole from her own family. Tyler sat back down, looking stunned. What about Adam? Where does this leave him? Gerald looked at me. Adam's done nothing wrong. If anything, he's a victim here, too. She left him, tried to destroy him financially, and used information she got from his private papers to commit a felony. He paused. As far as I'm concerned, Adam's still family. Stephanie's the one who chose to leave. The words hit me harder than I'd expected. After 8 years of marriage, I was about to lose a wife, but keep a father-in-law. The next morning, Detective Harrison called to tell me they'd found Stephanie. She'd been arrested at a luxury spa in Huntsville, trying to pay for a week-long retreat with one of the stolen credit cards. She was being held on charges of grand theft, credit card fraud, and embezzlement. She wants to talk to you, Detective Harrison said. Says she has information that might help her case. I drove to the Madison County Jail that afternoon. Stephanie was waiting in a small room, wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back and her face puffy from crying. She looked different, smaller. Adam, she said when I sat down across from her. Thank God you're here. This is all a misunderstanding. I didn't say anything. I was angry. Okay, you've been so distant lately. And I thought you were having an affair. I saw all those bank statements, all that money and accounts I didn't know about. I figured you were hiding assets from me, planning to leave me with nothing. So, you decided to leave me with nothing first. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was hurt. She leaned forward. But, Adam, we can fix this. You can talk to my dad. Explain that it was a mistake. Tell him I'll pay everything back. I looked at her for a long time. Stephanie, do you know whose money you stole? It was your money? I saw the account statements in your desk. It was your father's money. The joint account he set up with me for business purposes. The one he asked me not to tell you about because he was worried about your spending habits. The color drained from her face. That's not possible. $160,000. Money he was going to use to expand the business, to create jobs for people who've worked for him for years. You stole from your own father. Stephanie. She sat back in her chair like I'd hit her. No, that's not your lying. Call him yourself. Ask him about the joint account. Ask him about the police report he filed yesterday. Ask him about the lawyer he hired to make sure you face the full consequences of what you've done. For the first time since I'd known her, Stephanie was completely speechless. He knows about the other times, too. I continued. The smaller amounts over the past year, he had his accountant trace everything. It wasn't bookkeeping errors, Stephanie. It was theft. She started crying then. Not the pretty tears she used when she wanted something, but ugly, desperate sobs. Adam, you have to help me. I'm his daughter. He won't let them send me to prison. He already has. You made your choice when you decided to hurt me. Now you get to live with the consequences. I stood up to leave. Adam, wait, please. What about us? What about our marriage? I looked back at her one last time. You ended our marriage when you wrote that note. You ended your relationship with your family when you stole their money. And you ended any chance of fixing this when you chose revenge over honesty. So that's it. You're just going to abandon me. No, Stephanie, you abandon yourself. I walked out of that jail and drove straight to Gerald's office. He was sitting behind his desk, looking older than I'd ever seen him. How'd it go? He asked. She knows, I said. She knows exactly what she did and who she did it to. Gerald nodded slowly. Good. Maybe now she can start making better choices. But we both knew it was too late for that. 3 months later, I sat in the courtroom as Judge Morrison read Stephanie's sentence. 5 years in state prison for grand theft, with the possibility of parole after 3 years. Additional restitution of $160,000 plus court costs and penalties. Stephanie stood next to her public defender, no longer the confident woman who'd left that cruel note on my kitchen counter. She'd aged in those 3 months of jail time waiting for trial. Her hair was thin, her face gaunt, her expensive clothes replaced by an ill-fitting suit her brother had brought her. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she turned to look at Gerald in the gallery. I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm so sorry. Gerald didn't respond. He sat with his hands folded, his face impassive. He'd attended every hearing, not to support her, but to ensure justice was served. The prosecutor had painted a clear picture during the trial. Stephanie had systematically stolen from her family for over a year, culminating in the massive theft that devastated the businesses. Expansion plans. The 12 jobs Gerald had planned to create were postponed indefinitely. Two longtime employees had to be laid off because of the financial shortfall. Tyler testified about the family trust that had been revoked, removing Stephanie from any inheritance. Janet spoke about the shame Stephanie had brought to the family name. Gerald himself took the stand to explain how his daughter's betrayal had forced him to mortgage his own home to keep the business solvent. But the most damaging testimony came from the bank records. Every transaction, every withdrawal, every fraudulent charge was documented with timestamps and security footage. The evidence was overwhelming. As the bailiff led Stephanie away in handcuffs, she looked back one more time, not at her family, not at me, but at the courtroom door she'd never walked through as a free woman for years to come. The gavel fell with a sharp crack that echoed through the silent room. Outside the courthouse, Gerald and I stood in the afternoon sun. The family had already left, unable to watch their daughter and sister taken away in chains. But Gerald had waited. It's finished, he said quietly. How are you holding up? Better than I expected. He looked older, but somehow steadier. I keep thinking about the people at the plant. Good people who work hard, who depend on steady paychecks. She put all of that at risk for what? To hurt you, because she was angry. We walked to our trucks in silence. Gerald stopped at his door and turned back to me. Adam, I want you to know something. What she did doesn't change how I feel about you. You're still family as far as I'm concerned. More family than she's been lately. I appreciate that, Gerald, more than you know. The business is going to recover. It'll take time, but we'll rebuild. And when we do, I want you to consider coming to work for us. We could use someone with your skills and integrity. I thought about that empty house I've been living in, the divorce papers I'd signed 2 weeks earlier, the fresh start I'd been planning. Let me think about it. Take all the time you need. 6 months later, Stephanie's appeals were denied. The conviction stood. Gerald's business had recovered enough to hire back the laid-off employees and even add to new positions. The expansion project was back on track. As for me, I kept the house and started over. Stephanie lost everything: her family, her freedom, and any claim to the life she tried to destroy out of spite. In the end, her cruel note about upgrading to someone better had been prophetic, just not in the way she'd intended. I had upgraded to a life without lies, without betrayal, and without someone who would steal from her own father to settle a score. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting someone destroy themselves while you watch from a safe distance.